Hey everyone,
Hello.
Welcome to Trail Talk. Man, are we glad you could join us today. I'm Edie.
I'm Mary.
And you guys, let me introduce you. Y'all remember Mary. We're so excited that she is back. She's back.
I'm back.
Yeah, so welcome to Trail Talk. We're here in the classroom studio at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center in Duncan, Oklahoma. Yeah, under the lights. This is like a real studio. If you guys could just see us.
Hair and makeup just left.
Exactly. Yeah. We just come out of the green room, have tissues tucked in our shirt. Okay. Well, the reason you're watching is because we're talking about the Wichita Mountain Wildlife Refuge today. But you know, Mary, you can't talk about the wildlife refuge if you don't know why the wildlife refuge is there.
Exists in the first place.
Exactly. So we're gonna take you guys back prior to the wildlife refuge becoming
what it is
today.
Right. So way back before.
Yeah. So let's go back in time and talk about some bison, American bison, buffalo, as most people around here call them.
Tatonka.
The Tatonka.
I remember that from Dances with Wolves.
Right, and there you go. And which, I mean, you're talking about Dances with Wolves, a movie about Native Americans,
and
the buffalo, and actually the way the United States military, the role they played in all of that, yes, with the Native Americans, with the herds of buffalo, and that's where we're going to go first. Okay, so as we've talked about this a little bit before, but in the 1830s, the U.S. government moved the first 5 Native American tribes of people to what was then called Indian Territory.
Correct.
The Chickasaw, the Choctaw, the Cherokee, Creek, and Seminole. And so these reservations, were set up around Indian Territory, yeah. And these Native Americans, now they came from the Southeast, so they were not Plains tribes.
Correct.
So they were not dependent on the buffalo. But their way of life was still turned upside down as they were forced, to come to Indian Territory. But they soon began interacting with the Plains tribes because the Plains Native Americans lived all in the Great Plains area, from Mexico all the way up into Canada. And coincidentally, I don't think so, providentially, probably, that's also where the bison lived. Yeah. Give me a home where the buffalo roam. That's the Great Plains.
That's right.
So the Native American Plains tribes were living on the land, following the herds, and they were kind of in different areas. They kind of kept themselves separated. Yeah, they did. But nonetheless, if one of the herds that they, I guess, kind of attached themselves to, would kind of be how it went, they would follow that herd around. And then move forward from the 1830s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Now in the 1860s, we find ourselves coming on to post-Civil War,
railroads,
Western expansion, railroads, exactly. The railroads come right through to assist with the cattle drives and also to help, merge the East and the West, and kind of split the United States into
North
two,
and South,
which also split the herds of buffalo into distinct North and South.
Right.
And so a few things happened as a result of that. First of all, that genetically, they were not able to be as diverse.
Yeah, their gene pool was just cut in half.
Exactly. And so that played a bit of a role in what happens later. Yeah, with the buffalo herds. The next thing that happened was that the government basically said, you know what, there's no hunting season. Go kill as many of those animals as you want. And so European and American, brand new American, this is just past the Civil War, hunters, traders, they go out with guns and they just start mowing down herds of the buffalo. And we were talking earlier, the kind of one of the things that buffalo do is if one dies, others gather around it, which is kind of
like a mourning.
Yeah, kind of like a mourning, but they're sitting ducks then for
the other hunters.
The hunters. And so, there was a great market for the buffalo hides. Coat, they make coats and all sorts of things out of the hides. The bones, I didn't know this until a couple of years ago. We had this great bison exhibit here for the summer. Oh, it was so great. But all the horns, the skulls, the bones, those were shipped to England, the UK, and made into bone china. That was one of the main sources of the bone that they used to make bone china. I had always heard of bone china, but it never occurred to me that it was actually made from bones. I did not put that together until that exhibit was here. And so you have all of these people hunting, and for years.
Well, there's no refrigeration to keep the meat well.
Exactly.
So the meat spoils, they use it for what they want to use it for, and the left is just left to rot.
Exactly. And so the Plains tribes now are dealing with fewer buffalo because of the whole gene pool thing, and because the herds are separated, and then you have all of these people coming and just
wiping them out.
Yeah. And then amidst all of this research, I found a very interesting theory I had never heard before, and that is the disease theory.
Yeah, we talked a lot about this before.
Yes, we did. So there is some probably some evidence. There was actually a quote I read, a firsthand account by Charles Goodnight, who was one of the great ranchers, early cattle drive baron kind of guys, really big, very influential in the cattle
area
drives.
For the cattle drives.
Well, came up with
cattle drive period.
Didn't he come up with the chuck wagon?
The chuck wagon.
Yeah, I mean, he just really did a lot for all of that. But anyway, he had observed a herd of bison that were on part of his land, and it was during a drought, and the water source dried up. They ate all the grass down to nothing, but they didn't move on, which was the typical behavior of the bison. And he said he just watched them, and they just laid down and they died. And he was puzzled by that, but
they would that's how they would act. I mean, they would just follow their food and water source.
Exactly. They just moved on and grazed somewhere else, gave that place a chance to grow back up, and then they would come back. But this time they didn't do that. And there was another water source only about 30 miles away. So there is a theory that there was anthrax. This was particularly in the northern herd, and then tick fever, which was from Texas, and that those diseases had a huge impact on how quickly, this is what we're getting to, the number of
the decline in the population.
Yes, decline in the population literally went from tens of millions. I mean, I've seen estimates anywhere from about 20 million up to 85 or 90 million at any one time. That many buffalo on the roaming the plains. Now, part of the reason that I bring this up is the logic in this theory does seem substantiated, but I could be wrong. And if anyone's watching and you have some other information about this, please let me know. But the number of the buffalo that were hunted and take the hides and everything taken off of them was not even equal to the number of calves that were being born each year.
Right.
Because in a 3-year period from 1872 to 1874, the buffalo went from millions down to literally 456 buffalo.
Right.
In the whole, that's all they could
Existence.
account for.
Right.
Yes. 456 buffalo. So less than 500 were left alive from millions. I really don't know if that theory has been proven out all the way, but I did think it was something to consider, that also played a role. But one thing that we forgot to add is the open season on buffalo was not only allowed, but encouraged by the US government, because also during this period of time, prior to the land runs of 1889, more and more Native Americans were moved to Indian territory. And given reservations, that means there were parameters, there was a place they could not leave. So they could not go and freely hunt the buffalo.
That parameter.
Yeah, and they depended on them. They used every part. I listed off all the parts that as I was reading, and I won't say them because Mary might gag on live, and we don't want that to happen.
I was good.
It was kind of getting gross. It was very detailed list, but nevertheless,
they didn't leave any part unused.
Right. Yeah, they found a way.
They meant
Yes.
to use the parts.
Yeah, they found a way to use all of it. But, and you know what, we'll do a trail talk about that sometime because it's it's very interesting. But anyway, so now the Native Americans, the Plains tribes who were solely dependent on buffalo, are now solely dependent on the government for food rations. And so by eliminating the buffalo herds, it forced the Native Americans to be dependent, and thus enabled the moving and the, I guess, kind of controlling those tribes. Because the Western expansion, the Native Americans didn't want to give up their way of life, but the white settlers kept coming. Yeah, and it was it was an all-out war in some instances. So anyway, so basically what happens, we're down to a handful of these majestic creatures in all of the United States. So now, what are we going to do?
Yeah. What do you do now?
Well, we're going to roll forward a little bit to 1901. And I hope this is not too fuzzy. I enlarged it, but this is
the entry.
an entry thing at the Wichita Mountains. You might notice the Wichita National Forest and Game Preserve. So what happened first was in 1901, President William McKinley set aside this, or at least a portion of the land, as a national forest, a forest reserve. And then in 1905, Theodore Roosevelt, who became president because McKinley was assassinated, just a little freebie. There'll be a quiz later on that. He designated it as a game preserve. So
That's why forest and game preserve.
So now we have just a few hundred.
59,020 acres.
Yeah, 59,020 acres, a very large area that has been designated. Let's go to that next picture. It's just kind of a beautiful open shot. As you can see, the trees are not that big. There are a lot more trees in the Wichita Mountains now. It's a lot more vegetation out there. But this is just the first in our series of Wichita Mountain lessons, and we'll get into some of the landscape and
some of it's pretty cool.
it is. It's
parallel forest.
very interesting. But the Wichita Mountains then in 1907 was designated as a place to become home to 15 bison.
Yeah, they picked 15.
They picked 15 bison from the Bronx Zoo.
Zoological Society.
Yeah, what was it called? The Zoological Park.
Right. Yeah, here we go.
The New York Zoological Society.
Yeah,
So
15 of them.
Yeah.
I heard.
And listen, if you want a great read, it's lengthy, but look up Elwin R. Sanborn, Sanborn, and read his full account of the trip with these bison from New York City, the Bronx Zoo, to the Wichita Mountains. It is
Very, very detailed and
very
vivid.
right? And people just don't talk anymore like this man. The language he uses is fantastic, and it's very, I mean, it's almost visual, the way he describes things.
Yeah, you can definitely make it out in your mind.
Yeah, for sure. So they selected 15, let's see, it actually has,
Right there, the list of them.
yeah,
Even some of their names.
a 5.5-year-old bull named Comanche, a 3.5-year-old bull named Geronimo, two 2.5-year-old bulls, generally known as Lone Wolf and Quanah. They chose some great names for these guys. A spike bull, and I don't know what that means unless it just means that he is very young and has just little short horns. Yeah, their horns never stop growing, FYI. A bull calf they called Black Dog, and then 6 adult cows, a 2.5-year-old cow, a 1.5-year-old cow, and a female calf that was 16 months old. So all in total, 15 head of cattle. So, I mean, bison. So let's go to this next one. Okay, so in the Wichita Mountains, there was this Indian village set up. This is kind of just another visual for you to appreciate from some of the great things about the Wichita Mountains. Now, I don't know where Craterville Park is over there, but I think it would be fun to find and see if you could figure out where this picture was taken, the angle where it was taken, and kind of get another look at it. But let's go to the next. Okay, so these crates, there were 15,
like little cars.
yeah, 15 of these crates built. One crate was built for each of these bison to ride in, and then the crates were placed into train cars. They wanted the bison to be able to stand up or lay down, but they needed something that would contain them enough that they wouldn't be able to hurt themselves. And evidently they, kicked and carried on for a while.
Yeah, that's quite a trip.
There were some places when they left the Bronx and they went, I think they just went west for a while before they came back south. Anyway, they had to have they were transfer stations where they had to transfer the train cars, and there were big bumps and things that would be very disruptive.
Well, yeah, they're big, huge animals.
Yeah. So anyway, they stop in Oklahoma City, and in Oklahoma City, all these people turn out to see these
migration of the bison.
Yes. Yeah, they're so excited. I think they're excited, and so this would have been.
Probably had never seen a bison either.
Yeah, so that would have been in 1907, the year we became a state. I believe it was in October, and we became a state in November. So this is all kind of happening about the same time. Everyone's excited about being an Oklahoman, and we're going to be home to one of these herds. The wildlife refuge at the Wichita Mountains is not the only place that they took these small herds of bison.
To grow the population.
Right, but we were one of just a few. And so there was a lot of pride and everything in that. So they get all the way, they go through Lawton, and then they get to Cache. Okay, when they get to Cache, they have to unload each of these crates and put them on a trailer and haul them from Cache into the area in the Wichita Mountains where they're going to,
Unload and everything.
where they're going to unload them. And I mean, there was so much, what is the word for it?
Publicity?
No, the logistics.
Oh,
The logistics of pulling this thing off, it was immense. You know, there were so many people who had to understand how all of this was going to work together. And Mr. Sanborn wanted to give a Mr. Mitchell high praise. He said, it would be churlish and a neglect unpardonable not to award Mr. Mitchell praise for the admirable manner in which the details of the transportation were executed. That's high praise, y'all. Nobody wants to be churlish.
no,
Nobody.
nobody.
Okay, so let's look at the next one. So here is the pen where they are going to let the bison out, and they sprayed them with crude oil. So I'm thinking, what in the world? Well, the tick,
Kill
the
ticks.
tick problem, the crude oil was a quick and easy way to make sure the ticks died, because this area is going to be inhabited by them.
Why
And-
start out with them?
Right, and because there was no way to have instant immunity, these creatures had been living in a zoo. They're not going to be exposed to any kind of a tick-borne disease like, you know, up there. So they take them out one by one and they sprayed them with crude oil. And you can see the fence is high. Because buffalo can jump 6 feet in the air.
They can.
If you've ever been to the Wichita Mountains, the fences over there are super tall. And it's because they don't want these guys jumping out. I would so love to see one jump a fence. A super high fence. I'd be, but for another day. Okay, so the next picture, there were some Native Americans, a lot of Comanches Native Indians who lived in Cache. Cache is just like 10, 15
Yeah, not
miles.
far.
Yeah, from where, but you can see them. I thought that the picture of them standing next to the fence, you could really see how tall.
that is.
Yeah, and sturdy. I mean, that wire is pulled tight. You
And
can
those fence
tell.
posts are
Oh,
super
yeah,
thick.
very. So these bison are not going to be bringing that down. But can you imagine the Native Americans, some of the older ones, especially at this time, remembering the days when they could live as their people had always lived, and hunt these bison, and just, it was like a religious kind of experience for them to be near these animals again, because of how highly esteemed they were among.
Yeah, I mean,
among
that provided them with everything that they needed.
Yeah,
I mean, they
Yeah.
weren't killing for sport.
right,
So
right,
it
yeah.
to them it was a way of life, and it was something that they didn't take for granted.
Exactly. And so you can imagine just how it made their hearts feel to be able to see them. I'm sure seeing them with the fence
Fence.
between was not ideal, but yet to be that close to some of the bison again, and to be able to share
They're young.
with the little ones. These are the bison. These are the animals we've told you about, the stories we've passed down. You know, I just think that that's kind of a really great picture of just how much that meant to them. Okay, the next picture. Is there another one? Is that the last one? Okay, let's just leave it here then for a minute. So the next year in 1908, there were 3 calves born, and there have been just, probably thousands of calves born over in the wildlife refuge. Since then, you had some information about kind of how they handle, this is
Current
going to be
day.
a small herd, and we
Okay.
talked about some of the genetic
Yeah.
issues.
Well, so now what are you talking about? Current day? What they
Yes,
do?
yeah,
It
present
says
day.
that I guess I'm guessing it's probably annually, yes. They do a hair and blood sample of the herds and for disease testing. And so it said, the bisons that are more closely related to the rest of the herd are selected for sale or donation. And then the other bisons that are less genetically represented in the herd are retained then for the conservation. So that way there's not all that inbreeding and, the population can grow rather than being shrunken down.
And be diverse.
Right.
It's
Right.
diverse enough for them
Right.
to continue on there. Yeah. And so they use the word that they dispose of some of the buffalo, and some they probably do sell for to be eaten. But they people have private herds.
Right, there's people that own bison. There used to
Yeah.
be one that lived here in town. I remember seeing one.
Yeah. So these 15 bison at the Wichita Mountains were the beginning of a new beginning,
A repopulation.
a repopulation of one of the greatest, I don't know what you call it, just symbols of the United States.
In Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes,
it's
exactly.
all over Oklahoma.
Exactly. And
Major part of our history.
to think that we almost lost this animal, it's terrifying to me that the numbers dropped so low.
So drastically fast. too.
But I love the fact that the government said, we need to have these animals not just living in zoos. We need to reestablish them in the wild. Now, there
A
will,
safe place for them.
yes, there will never be millions of these great animals again.
No.
Never. But you can go to the Wichita Mountains and see them almost any time. There are probably, like, when it's really hot like this, they're probably not going to be out in the day. They're probably in a cool spot. But in the evenings or early mornings, you can see them. We were over there in probably February, and there weren't really any kind of on the lower areas where we were hiking around, but up on some of the bluffs, there were some buffalo up there, and it was just very majestic and very beautiful to be able to see. And so anyway, guys, that's kind of how all of this 59,000 acres, 59,000 plus acres.
Right.
This is just one way that the Wichita Mountain Wildlife Refuge is used. These animals do not cover all of that.
No, they don't take up.
There
all of
are elk,
that. There's
longhorn cattle,
let's see. There's coyote, white-tailed deer, bobcat, mountain elk, fox, 50 species of mammals is what.
Wow,
and
50
64 species of reptiles and amphibians.
oh,
Yeah,
that's a lot.
so there's over 650 bison are right now coexisting
Oh,
there,
wow.
and 240 species of birds.
Wow.
And there's even longhorns over there. too.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's not just about the bison, but the bison were put there. There was other wildlife already there at that time, but this is kind of the stepping off place about the wildlife refuge, and that's why we're calling this volume 1, because in our research we discovered there are going to be
So a lot of information.
several volumes about the Wichita Mountains. And it was one of our day trip vacation getaways, and it's a short drive from Duncan and worth the drive from anywhere in Oklahoma or even
Northern Texas.
northern Texas. It's a great day trip kind of place to go. So anyway, check out the Wichita Mountain Wildlife Refuge, and we're glad you were able to hear us share all of this great history about the bison. Tomorrow, Sheila DiCarlo from Thinkability. She's the garden director, I think. I hope I didn't call you the wrong thing, Sheila. But anyway, she's going to come on and talk about Thinkability and their garden. And if you don't know anything about that, please tune in, because it's a great, one of the little gems of Duncan. It absolutely is. So join us here tomorrow at 3:00, and I guess it's time, Mary.
I remember.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Then let's, there we go.
Hey, there it is.
We'll see you guys tomorrow. Happy
Happy
trails.